which I watched. I enjoyed. I enjoyed it. I liked some of the earlier matches first. Soto versus that one guy whose name I can't remember. That was right before. That was a good match with Soto. That stoppage was dumb, but Soto kept just going for the kill punch every 2 seconds.
Yeah, Soto looked. That body looked a little roided to me.
Yeah.
And I'm always anti-jacked boxers. I know he's a flyweight. I know he's fighting at 108, but he looked like he was wearing a muscle suit.
Yeah. The Canelo Billie Joe Saunders fight was good, but it just didn't. It seemed like Canelo had it in the bag the entire way.
It was Takayama,
yeah. Well, they stopped that, and then I loved how Takayama came back out and started shadowboxing. Like, I'm not done. Is there any possibility they would have restarted that fight?
No. Once it's done, it's done. So there's a lot. Listen, I'm letting you get. Why don't you go ahead and tell me more about your thoughts, because I have about 25 minutes that I need to get off my chest.
Okay. Well, I was watching it. You were doing a show. I was watching the fight, and I texted you. I was like,
show too.
Okay, well, yeah, because I texted you. I was like, do you want to talk about the fight or do you want to wait to watch it? And you're like, I want to wait to watch it. I was like, okay, because I had texted you. It was right after it ended, and it was Canelo seemed like he was in control all the way, and I really enjoyed when Canelo started realizing he was in control all the way and just started pumping up the crowd completely. But did you see the injuries? Like what a usual X-ray of the injury that Billie? Oh, what the fuck? What the injury that Billie Joe Saunders had, that like what that injury usually looks like.
Hold on one second. Sorry, my computer was. What happened to you? I'm not seeing you.
I'm getting a spam call because I have my phone as a monitor right now.
Oh, okay. Did I see the injuries? No, nobody has seen the injuries.
No, not hit. I'm not saying have you seen his injuries. Have you seen what an X-ray of that injury usually looks like?
I have, yeah. What's your point? Because I have a lot of thoughts about this injury too. I'm just loading my rifle right now.
The way that injury usually looks, I'm just saying, is like the eye socket is like completely disconnected. It's fucking gnarly. Like it's like broken in half and like hanging off the face.
What do you mean by usually?
What they're calling this injury, I've seen X-rays of what other of this exact injury looks like.
Yeah.
And it's very gnarly to look at.
Okay. Well, 2 words for Billie Joe Saunders. Daniel Dubois. Do you know who Daniel Dubois is?
I do not know who Daniel Dubois is.
Daniel Dubois is a boxer who, I forget who he was fighting, but he fractured his orbital bone, which is what they're claiming happened to Billie Joe Saunders. The only person who has said that he fractured his orbital bone is Billie and Billie's promoter, Eddie Hearn, which, of course, Eddie Hearn wants to say that the injury happened because he doesn't want to admit that if it weren't true, he would not want to admit that his fighter that he promotes quit on the stool as soon as the fight got difficult. But
you think that he quit on the stool, or his eye was swollen shut? Did he quit, or did they stop it? His trainer quit for him?
He quit on the stool. The trainer came out and said, I stopped it. Tibbs is his trainer. He says that I stopped it. But if you watch the replay, Billie Joe Saunders put no, he didn't stand up. He didn't he didn't say no. They said
his eye's completely swollen shut. Is he supposed to keep fighting in that moment?
Just let me tell you.
All right.
Daniel Dubois is a fighter who quit on the stool in 2000. I forget when. Fractured orbital bone. Billie Joe Saunders pulls up on Instagram and says, I've got all the respect in the world for anybody who gets in the ring, but Daniel Dubois, you broke your eye. He goes, get carried out of the ring, mate. If you're going to get in that ring, get carried out of there. He goes, I don't care if my eye's broken. I don't care if I can't see. You're carrying me out of that ring. I will die out of that ring before I quit on the stool. That's what Billie Joe Saunders, from the horse's mouth, talked that shit. And then he gets on television and he goes all the time, constantly, I'm a gypsy, I'm a traveler, I'm a fighting man. It's in my blood. I would be fighting if it wasn't for money. I'd rather die than quit. All this talk, same talk that Tyson Fury has. Same, Tyson Fury going on Instagram every day saying, me and Billie Joe are cut from the same cloth. He's going to shock the world. Tyson, he is not cut from the same cloth as you. When Deontay Wilder knocked Tyson Fury's ass out with a punch that is 3,000 times harder than anything Canelo could ever do. Deontay Wilder is one of the hardest punchers in the history of boxing. Clear shot, right, perfect connection, perfect hook, right on Tyson Fury's face. Tyson Fury gets up and wins the round. This is not the same thing that Billie Joe Saunders could do. Billie Joe Saunders was in that ring squinting his eyes, It just.
I think his eye was more squinted for him.
No, listen, Nakatomi. Last week, we talked about Matsuhama. I don't remember how to say his first name. We talked about how Nakatomi had a fractured orbital bone. It was knocked down twice versus the now incarcerated Felix Verdejo. That was one of the best fights I'd ever seen. He came back and won that fight with a fractured orbital bone. Naoya Inoue, who's potentially the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world, was fighting the Filipino dude, Denor. I forget how to say his name. He won that fight with a fucking fractured orbital bone. And then they were interviewing a bunch of boxers after, and they were saying, "What did you think of the fight?" And they were like, "Oh, he quit. And then the reporter says to, was it Robert Garcia? I forget who it was. He was talking to some boxer, and he says, "Well, he had a fractured eye bone. Have you ever fought with a fractured eye bone?" And the fighter came back. I wish I had saved it, but he's like, "Bitch, I fractured my orbital bone in the second round of when I won my title. Listen, these are not normal people. Listen, I'm a bitch. You break my eye, you can have my wife. I don't care. Like, I'm not a fucking boxer. Billie Joe Saunders is a boxer who talks a lot of shit, and he quit right on the stool as soon as the fight got a little bit difficult for him. You fight through that. You at least have the referee stop the fight. That's personally,
Billie Joe Saunders is your guy.
Well, this is why I'm a little bit frustrated because I bought into his talk. I feel like I was swindled. I know that this is probably the 15th episode where I say boxing choked me up because I understand boxing. There's something.
Did you cry after the Canelo fight?
Not after.
During.
Not during.
Before.
When Billie Joe Saunders came out on that stage. And
you're watching on your cell phone at a comedy show and you're crying?
I was watching it in the parking lot of a grocery store after the comedy show. I said choked up. I didn't say. I don't think I actually shed a tear, but I'm not above.
You were alone, so there's no real.
I'm not above shedding a tear. If I had shed a tear, I'd come clean. But there was just this moment where I'm watching Billie Joe Saunders, who I've been paying attention to for a long time, because I think he's so funny. But I'm watching him walk out on that stage. And I remember a press conference 5 years ago. I forget who Canelo was fighting, but Billie Joe Saunders crashing the press conference, talking shit, saying, "I want you, Canelo." And the fact that, I'm picturing him winning, getting into the Olympics, representing the UK in the Olympics. This guy who's been fighting since he's fought, pictures of him as a kid with punching gloves on. Just like, you know what I mean? Just like his whole life, his family, he comes from dirt. Leading up to this moment, sold out football stadium. And here it is. Here's your big moment. You worked your whole life for it and you fucking achieved it. And I'm getting choked up. And then I'm watching him box. And first of all, I think he watched the Mayweather Canelo fight, and because he tried to kind of do what Mayweather did to Canelo, but Billie Joe is not as good or fast as Mayweather, so it was the wrong tactic. And then when he quit on the stool, I was like, "Bitch, you lied to me. You fucking lied to me. You've been lying to me for 13 years. Ever since I first heard your name, it was carry me out of the canvas. You're going to have to nail me to that canvas if you want to keep me down. You fucking swindler." And I'm glad he got his money, and I'm glad his family, his great-grandchildren will be wealthy because of that fight. And he deserves it. Anybody who gets punched in the face, whether or not they quit, they deserve it. It's a blood sport for our entertainment. So by all means, make your money. But I will never fucking root for you again. I mean, at least pretend to protest your fucking ringside coach ending the fight. At least just for a little dignity, act like, you know what I mean? Like that hold me back shit people do where they're like, They grab somebody's arm, put it around them, and then they go, hold me back. Like do something like that. Canelo, on the other hand, I have a hard time.
Excellent fight.
Excellent fight. I have a hard time liking Canelo. I really do. Because it's not his fault. It's because the media has been sucking his dick because he's the first YouTube boxer. He's the first guy. When he was 15 years old, he was viral on YouTube back in the day.
I know that.
That's how he got famous. And it's awesome. He's 15 years old. He's knocking out 30-year-old dudes. And there's nothing wrong with Canelo except for the fact that the judges always score in his favor. There are at least 3 fights that I believe he lost that he won on the cards.
Well, it's kind of with Mayweather. If you want to be the champ, you got to beat the champ. Where people have given Mayweather good fights, but they haven't convinced the judges enough that they really. It's hard to beat the champ.
I don't know.
It's hard to. It's you know what I'm saying though. It's hard to beat the champ.
G, when you watch Triple G 1, and I'll show you. I have a DAZN subscription. I will send you my password, and you will sit down. You will watch that fight, and there is not one reasonable person in the world who can. That is more of a golden goose situation. That's more of a this guy makes all the money. Triple G 100, and Canelo's the best in his weight division right now. He's going to destroy Caleb Plant. I even think he beats Benavidez, who everybody thinks he's ducking. But what I'm saying about Canelo
was Benavidez the guy who came into the press conference?
No, that's
after?
Boo Boo. That's Demetrius Andrade.
I loved it. Canelo's like, "You'll get the fuck out of here."
Yeah, Canelo goes, "Payday, payday, payday. You want payday? I know.
This is my night, motherfucker."
Yeah, you're a horrible fighter. Nothing Canelo said was wrong. Canelo will whoop the shit out of Demetrius Andrade.
I loved that.
Yeah, I like that he's got away from Golden Boy and that he's showing his personality more. I liked that he was hooping up the crowd. I thought that was cool. But that fight, by the way, a lot of people were saying it was closer than it was. And if I've watched it twice. And what I realized is that Canelo had enough of Billie Joe's shit. Do you know about some of the behind the scenes things? Like his team drew mustaches on Canelo on all of the posters around the hotel. And anytime Canelo or anybody on Canelo's team would walk through the hotel, Tyson Fury or some other somebody in Billie Joe's camp would just be singing, "There's only one Billie Joe. There's only one," everywhere they went. And then Billie Joe Saunders was making comment about, like, I think he was alluding to steroids. A lot of people took it the wrong way, but he was saying that Canelo's been eating a lot of Mexican beef. And there's just like a lot of
people saying he's sucking dick.
No, I think he was just saying that it's tainted meat. That it's like because they're like a poor country,
FDA,
or whatever.
blah blah blah.
Yeah. So I think Canelo was just like, "Fuck this motherfucker! I'm gonna kill him." And when I watched the fight the second time around, what I realized is that Canelo loaded up on every single punch he threw. He did not give a shit about winning rounds. So yeah, maybe Billie Joe won a couple rounds like with boxing or whatever, but Canelo was like, "That's not the fight."
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I was going to say that too because it was very similar to that Soto Yakamori or whoever fight right before, where Soto was just. That's kind of a Mexican boxer thing usually, though. Don't Mexican boxers really just a lot of times go for the big punch?
Right, but Canelo is a slick defender. Like he can box. Like if you watch the Callum Smith fight, he just boxed. He can do whatever he wants.